by Terry Miller, seconded by Kathy Regier. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region receives and files correspondence 1 through 7. Any questions? MTO update on Highway 17 Waterbury site plan application info. Any questions? Councillor McLaughlin.
I think you basically answered that question earlier this evening.
Yes.
Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
And that's what this is all about?
Correct.
Yeah. So we just applied for it and then we turn it over to BEI to do the work.
Yeah, they become responsible to us, which we have already.
We have not received, MTO is generating the agreement.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We haven't received it yet for signature, but we have a memorandum of understanding that even though we are obligated as the township to sign the agreement with MTO, BEI is obligated to do the work.
Okay.
And bear the cost.
I appreciate with the update then. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Ontario Medal for Young Volunteers and Ontario Volunteer Service Award info. Any questions?
Do we have anybody that we're going to nominate, or perhaps, it's a little short notice now, but if we can think about it, maybe bring this up in October so we can think about it ahead of time, or November, so that when the letter does come in December, that we're prepared for January's cutoff?
Is this past date, or can it be still applied for?
It can be, but
Can, Hal, but with Christmas coming up and the deadline is January 15th and January 25th, I'm building a more robust forward file, and I think that's a really good idea. If I can just put these notes in for next fall, we know it's coming. It can come up at a committee meeting. It always seems these things pop up with next to no notice, and I'd prefer to do that.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea. From being here a year, going to all kinds of different functions, I'm very impressed with the amount of young volunteers we have, and you keep seeing just like adults, you keep seeing the same young volunteers everywhere you go. Okay. Garrison Petawawa Culture and Diversity Festival info. Read that? Councillor Jackson.
are we planning on doing anything as Whitewater Region for this festival? Because it says that this is your opportunity to showcase to our soldiers and their families what your community has to offer with respect to service and support for any Aboriginal peoples, visible minorities, persons with disabilities, and women. So is there...
Just going to, do we have any women?
I take offense to that statement.
Well, then we have women that want to do it.
What I'm asking is the Township of Whitewater Region going to do anything, or are they just going to attend? That's my question.
Councillor Olmsted.
Can I suggest maybe we get our economic development officer to put something together? This might be a great chance to showcase Whitewater Region and all it has to offer. And very kind of similar to what he did in the Beachburg, what event we had at the Beachburg Arena this year, but he had a booth set up.
And we have
bear in mind his contract will terminate mid-February, so he won't be here for a March event. He could start working on preparing it, but...
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe he can start preparing it, and if he's not there, we can have an employee of the township or somebody who represents us.
Because we have that video coming, eh?
And I guess the important part is you have to follow Aboriginal peoples, visible minorities, women, and persons and disabilities. So it's not showing off the township, it's showing off the township with those capabilities. They're restricted to... I would hold those comments.
We have on that, we might have to edit it.
I agree with Councillor Olmsted that if it can be found that we can promote those areas for our township, that it's worthwhile doing. If we cannot find ways of promoting our township through those areas, then we attend.
I personally feel that we should be able to do something within those. We have, we may not have visible minorities as such, but we definitely have some pretty proactive functions and things that take place for women. I think that should be worked on. Like Councillor Olmsted.
I just think from a recreation standpoint, you know, I just pick one, persons with disabilities. Well, we have enough trails, and you've seen all different kinds of bicycles that people with disabilities are able to ride. Rafting, I've seen people that with no legs in the rafting companies. Trails, actually I do know that the horseback riding companies, they cater to people with disabilities and have special ramps and that kind of stuff, so I think we should be able to put something together.
Oh, absolutely. And we work into the future with what we have planned too, like even our advertisement video, it can have things brought in with that because there are so many things that will tie to our municipality. Somebody with an imagine, we'll get Andrew started on that as per suggestion, and anybody that has suggestions or that knows of some way of being of assistance should absolutely help out.
Or accessibility, maybe. Beach for green accessibility. Even with some of the accessibility stuff we've done recently with the tourist booth's going to be accessible soon, right? Beachburg Arena is going to be accessible, so I think we should be able to put something pretty good.
Absolutely. I agree, yeah. All right, then we'll move ahead to OPP News, run-through info. Everybody got a copy of that? Okay. Gas tax projects revision. Any question? Oh yeah, email property standards committee request. We all have the email, and we shall keep that in mind, for sure. Cobden, pardon, sorry, Councillor McLaughlin.
And I'll direct it to Christine. Is that committee, are we to form a new committee? Is the committee dissolved? Because there was a committee, and I know that Mrs. Burns was on there as well as Mr. Cull, and I can't remember who else was on that committee. There was 3, was there not?
I have had no experience at all with this committee. So I know Doug has organized it. I have never been part of assigning people or having people called out for duty. I'll discuss it with him.
Yeah, because I don't know if it has to have a new, if there's a certain time length to the committee. I'm not aware. I know of the committee.
I'll find out.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McLaughlin, or Councillor Olmsted, sorry.
It does say in Mrs. Burns' letter, as you know, these past 3 years in particular, this committee never met. So it doesn't sound like they're an active committee this time.
Yeah, Councillor McLaughlin.
They didn't meet because there was no need to meet, there was no conflict, and that's what this committee stands. What it does, it's kind of like like other committees that we have, when there's disputes over property, then they would be brought out, much like the fence viewers. Fence viewers don't meet regularly unless there's a need to meet, and that's what this committee is for. Yep. It's a need to meet committee.
Yeah, it's Councillor Rigger.
And I think Councillor McLaughlin is right. I remember back in, I think, 2010, there was an issue, and that committee was pretty involved at that time. but I think that was resolved either in 2011, and that's why we haven't seen anything since. It has been over the 3 years since that issue was resolved.
Reeve Miller?
We're referring, property standards, we're referring to a neighbor not liking the condition of the adjacent property. Is that where this is at? We do have problems like that. I've been approached about them, and I've passed them on to different people, and basically got the answers that there's really nothing enforceable, there's nothing you can do. So maybe we do need this committee. I could specifically go to one location in Cobden with somebody that's very unhappy.
Well, we do have a complaints-driven system, so if there is a complaint, I need it in writing, and I've received nothing.
Well, you'll get one then.
Okay, that's fine, and at that point, I'll make sure this falls under Doug's responsibilities, and we'll deal with it that way. But please bear in mind that you know, when you hear about complaints, I need something in writing in order to move forward.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Mackay, then Councillor McLaughlin.
I've heard some complaints, and some of them I went and talked to people and sort of, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, but solved the problem or got somebody to move on them. And that seems to be maybe a better way before we bring other people in, if you can do it yourself.
If you make a